on an episode of Startup Stories with UJ, and today I have my guest as Wahaj Ahmed, who's a founder and CRO, Chief Revenue Officer of Retailo, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so welcome aboard, Wahaj, on this show for us. So let's start. Why don't you take an initial few minutes and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Wahaj, one of the founders for Retailo. We've been doing Retailo now for close to 1.5 years. We started in June 2020. So before this, I was a McKinsey consultant. I spent 3 years there, mostly in the payments and digital banking space. So got the opportunity to work with a couple of central banks as well. So that's what I've been doing before. And before that, I used to lead Careem Karachi as its GM. So I was part of the founding team for Careem in Pakistan. And then before that, I've been part of Rocket Internet for a while. So I've worked at Taraz, Kemu, and Tripda as well. So that's a bit about myself. 2014 LUMS grad, or did a accounting and finance major, and also did some computer science on the side. That's a bit about.
So I taught at LUMS from 2003 to 2010. So our paths shouldn't have crossed.
Oh, maybe just for the 2010 end, if you did the fall semester there. So I was there then.
maybe. Okay, so okay, awesome, Wahaj, and help us understand. So, how big a team as a founding team? Aap log kitne log ho, and what are your duties in Retailo?
Oh, so we are 3 founders. Founding team, of course, is bigger. So and that's myself, Tkxel, and Tala. So very quick intros to them. Tala is company CEO. Before that, Tala used to be senior director at Careem for its last mile business, Careem now. And before that, he's led operations for Pakistan and for Careem and also for Saudi. And he's before he joined Careem, he used to be MD for Food Panda in Pakistan. So Tala joined Food Panda very early, and he joined it as an intern, and his last role was MD CEO before the Ito merger. And then post merger, Tala moved to Careem. So so before that, again, Tala is IBA grad 2012. And Tkxel is my other founder, is the guy I know now for more than 10 years. We went to LUMS together, not the same batches. And Tkxel is the most entrepreneurial out of the 3 of us. He's done a couple of startups of his own. He was a founding member of Shopistan, which is a company in Lahore, in the e-commerce space. And basically, from there, Tkxel launched his own tech startup called Taza Daily. This is 2015, when there's barely any 3G in Pakistan. And the idea was to do a milk run model Q-commerce for that, right? And I think it was a bit early for Pakistan. He managed
a little early for it.
Exactly. He managed to raise funds from Kima Ventures in the US, but eventually shut down that startup to join Careem. And essentially, I got him to come to Careem. I was like, this is a whole new world. And from there, he used to lead Lahore for a while. And then he moved to the central team in Dubai, where he was leading pricing for the entire platform. And his last role at Careem was the overall head of strategy for Careem, and he worked on the super app strategy there. So awesome. That's about Tkxel. So
a lot of LUMS and Careem alumni over here. Generally a lot that's happening a lot in the startups. So great. So tell us more about Retailo. What is Retailo? How did you came about the idea, and what is the platform? What are you doing with it?
So Retailo is, in its simplest sense, the B2B e-commerce platform. And we essentially are solving a massive opportunity which is untapped for informal retail. Just to give you a sense, the MENAP region as a whole is $500 billion of retail revenue, and annually. And out of that, 65% of it trades through informal retail. And when we talk about informal retail, there are 10 million small shops or retailers that exist across the MENAP region. And I'm talking about all sorts of retailers, grocery, everything. So, and less than 1% of them are digitized in a sense, right? That they run their own digital procurement infrastructure. That is the core thing which we are solving. And what we are building today, and our focus in our phase 1 is to build an procurement solution for them. So using our technology, they can buy the goods that they are selling in their stores. And essentially, when they order from us, we provide them doorstep next day delivery. And that is what we are focused on today. Of course.
So retailers order through you, and then you procure it from wholesalers or something and get it to them?
Exactly. So we have a mobile app.
We're connecting retailers, B2B retailers and wholesalers in a supply chain.
Precisely. And of course, we run multiple models in it. Like there's a marketplace element, there's a retailing element, and both of them together. And
so are you just a referring referring platform?
No, so we do the warehousing and the last mile bit as well. And of course, on some transactions, we directly connect the supplier with the retailers. But in those cases as well, we do the last mile bit.
So retailers essentially place orders with Retailo, and then Retailo fulfills it using its own network of wholesalers. Is this correct? Or manufacturers?
Precisely. That's the right. So any order that comes, just to walk you through the life cycle, any that is ordered on our platform before midnight is aggregated in our warehouses. So essentially, we operate our warehouses throughout the night. Those orders are aggregated and so on. And then the deliveries start happening in the morning around 7 a.m. And we use our own technology to do the routing for these orders. So we fulfill up to 5,000 touch points in a city in Karachi on a daily basis. So, and those orders are aggregated across 300 vehicles, and they are loaded, unloaded in our warehouses and so on. And they use our delivery application to do the deliveries, manage the routes, manage them.
Are these vehicles your, or it's just your?
So of course, they are operated on leased, but we run.
But this is Retailo's captive.
Of course, this is just for us. Yeah.
Okay. So is it mainly in Karachi region, or you are operating?
So we are operational in Pakistan and Saudi, and Saudi contributes to around 60% of our business right now, compared to the 40% in Pakistan. So we are present in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam, and in Pakistan we are present in Karachi and Islamabad right now.
Okay. So, and I mean, while you were talking, you talked a lot about MENAP region. So that gave me an idea that you are a lot focused, not just in the Pakistan, but the MENA region. So what brought that Saudi thing in? I mean, you guys are founders out of Pakistan. I mean, where did come this Saudi market into play?
So I think there are two things. Firstly is our scale of ambition is higher. We feel that the opportunity is massive and very similar across the region. That is one. And then second is that Tala and Nokesh both have spent a considerable amount of time in Saudi with Karim. So Tala used to lead operations for Saudi. We've seen the problem statement very closely there directly. And I think also one thing which really prompted the decision is that if you look at our region, the big tech companies that have made it have existed at a regional level within our region, because of course we have a lot of currency macro risk associated with Pakistan. Access to talent, again, international talent in Pakistan is a big concern typically. So those two constraints bearing in mind, we always had the vision to build a regional company, because we feel that to tap the opportunity correctly, that both the financial and the people resources are critical to really build something of sizable scale.
Excellent. So your initial actually kind of model started in Saudi or in Pakistan?
So we launched Karachi and Riyadh together with almost 2 months gap. So when June 2022 we launched, we couldn't travel to Saudi immediately because of the COVID situation, but we launched it as soon as we could, which was around September 2020. And since then, of course, the Saudi, as you can understand, is a much more mature market in terms of tech adoption, warehouse operations, and so on, right? So the traction there has been a lot faster than in Pakistan. Of course, we are a very sizable business in Pakistan as well, alhamdulillah. But I think from a comparison perspective, I think it's relatively easier to operate in Saudi compared to Pakistan.
Sure. And I'm assuming your founders are splitting time between Pakistan and
Precisely.
Saudi.
So initially when we launched, of course, I used to run the Pakistan business and Tala used to run the Saudi business. And of course, when we transition now from a much larger scale or where we have teams built, where we have centralized teams. So our product and engineering, or Tkxel is always led and has based in Lahore and Islamabad primarily. Of course, we have some engineers and design teams here as well in Karachi. But that's a function we realized that we need to centralize, and a lot of our now central growth teams are centralized and all of the ancillary functions as well. So now we have moved into more formalized roles where I run the business particularly. Tala focuses on the horizontal management and the fundraising as well.
So that takes us to the next question. How did you raise your funding? Where are you in your funding stage and all that?
So we are in the completion phases of our Series A round, which will be, I think, hopefully announced quite soon. And before that, we've raised a pre-seed and a seed round so far. And of course, one of the pre-seeds that we raised was $2.3 million, and around June 20, I think it was mostly we announced it around August 2020. And then we did our seed in Feb. So, and inshallah, we'll be announcing the Series A in the next month.
So, is the evaluations in the pre-seed seed rounds are public, or is it something?
Valuations are not, the funding amounts are, but you can guess to the valuations. They're pretty much in the standard ranges. So, nothing too much.
So, what did you raise in seed round?
We raised 6.7. So, 2.3 and 6.7. Yeah, we raised. That was the tagline. We went with 9 million in 9 months. So Alhamdulillah, we've been having a lot of fast growth.
Great. And what are you raising right now? I mean, what is the total funding you're raising right now? Is the round still open?
So the round is closed. I think I can't disclose the number exactly, but we'll soon announce. So, but it's a sizably larger round than what we raised before, of course. And I think the funding journey, I think when we started it, the Pakistan environment was not the same, right? It was not like dollars flowing in left, right, and center.
Yeah.
I also feel really, I think proud, and also I think privileged to be part of this thing, that we were one of the first few companies who kind of started raising big from the country. And I think it has helped potentially open the doors as well, right? So there have been, of course, the Bikeas, the food pandas of the world before us, and then sort of this new age wave of startups which have been doing this. So really, really happy. And I think this is a big step forward, inshallah, for Pakistan.
Zabardast. So, in terms of funding, who were your sources, who you went after? I mean, for people who are now building startups, it might be of interest to them that what are their.
So I think the initial funding that we raised was literally through cold reach outs. So, and the first two.
And how many people you reach out to? What was your strike rate?
In the pre-seed round, it was incredible. It made me think like raising funding was easy. 100%. So we spoke to 3 investors and 3 invested.
Okay. And were they Pakistani investors or investors from abroad?
No, none of them are Pakistani investors. So it was
MENA region, Dubai or Saudi?
So our first investor was a Southeast Asian version of 500 startups. So 500 operates, it's one of the biggest VCs in the world, and it operates primarily from the US, but it has 2 arms in the MENA region. Either it invests through its Southeast Asian fund or through it's called 500 Durians, or it invests through its MENA fund, which is called 500 Falcons. So 500 Durians was the first fund we reached out to, and one of their partners I spoke to very early, Kylie Ng, he's the guy who invested, and was an incredible conversation. I think at that point when I spoke to him, I was still a bit dicey whether I want to do this or not. And Kylie was like, "You're sitting on top of a gold mine. This is what you should be going for." And that is, I think, he played a big part in shaping early Retailo, I think. And the other primary investor we spoke to was Shuruk Partners. and they're a MENA-based fund. And again, we met them, and they loved us immediately. They had spoken to a lot of our competition, and at that point, they had been contemplating investing into Tajir and Bazaar as well, but chose us. So it was really privileged that that happened. And क्या कहते हैं, from then, I think then on the journey has become harder, I feel, because I think anything less than 100% is not 100%, right? So, so I think we spoke to around 8 to 9 investors and closed around 4. So
Okay.
that sort of the strike rate there.
Okay, and these are all MENA-based investors.
In our seed round, there were 5 funds that primarily participated. It was Shuruk. It was a Kuwait-based fund called Arzan Capital. There was a US-based fund called AG Funder, which invested in food supply chain primarily. And then there was a UK-based private equity called Abercross, which invested in us, which manages money for a lot of Saudi families. And then also was the 5th fund, which invested in 500, came back and invested into the round as well. So that was.
And you went through the typical incorporation structure, company, Singapore company, holdco, and then
precisely. So we had a holdco in Singapore. Eventually, we shifted our holdco to Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
I think just sort of an internal structuring decision. And then there's at that time, of course, a company again incorporating it outside of Pakistan was a bigger challenge, but Tala Noke's both are based out of Pakistan, so it made it simpler. And that's how it worked. But now I think the new laws have become really conducive, so I'm glad about that.
So how do you rate yourself against? I mean, there are now a lot of competition in this space, in this B2B space. So there's Tajir, Bazaar, Dastagir, there is Jugnu, Retailo. I mean, all are going after a similar sort of a market. So how you see this competition, where you are in terms of this competition?
A little bit bored of this question, but would love to answer regardless. So I think, firstly, I think there's 2 aspects to it. One is the size of the market, right? So the Pakistan retail market is close to $100 billion, right? Out of which 85% is informal. So $85 billion, that sounds like an extremely large number, and it is. But even before factoring in for retail growth, right? If you split that into that 85 billion number into Karachi, that's $8.5 billion, or close to like $7 billion a month, right? And out of that, if you kind of do 10% in Karachi, that's around $700 million a month. Now, the $700 million a month market means like close to 120 billion PKR a month market. And just to give you a sense, if you combine our volumes, Dastagir, Bazaar, Jugnu, we would make up, I think, close to 2 billion PKR out of the 120 billion. So that's small we are compared to the market. And this before, like I said, before factoring in for growth, right? And the retail market grows in Pakistan annually at 6%. And just to give you a sense, so 120 billion ka agar aap आधा % grow karte hain monthly is close to 600 million. So just imagine it grows by us and all the other players combined every 3 months. So that's the size of the market you're playing. So I think it's like saying कि अगर हम wholesaler हैं या distributor हैं, तो there are 3,000 wholesalers and distributors in Pakistan, right? So even if we aggregate and becomes 100 times as large as an average distributor, there is space for 30 of us. So that is the size of the market. That's one part. I think second is how do we differentiate? I think there are 3 primary elements. I think one is our regional presence. So we are able to operate at a different level because we are able to recruit talent outside of Pakistan as well. And we are tapping multiple markets as well together. So our scale of growth, when you combine our markets, is way, way faster, right? Because we've been building the same thing in 2 countries at the same time. We are about to do our 3rd country. So the scale of operations and the organizational maturity is at a different level and a lot of our competition. And then secondly, I think we're able to amortize our tech stack across multiple markets, which gives us a big advantage. And thirdly, is that from an operational standpoint, we've seen extremely complex operations in both markets, very different. So we built our tech stack in a way that allows us to incorporate for a lot of these factors together.
Okay, ji. Achha, so so I get that, and okay, there's a very big market and a lot of players are after that, and I guess this market gets further segmented because supply chain from B2C is a lot, but I mean there are Taza, Daily Fresh who are into a different. I mean they are also into between retailer and wholesaler, but in a different segment. So while the market numbers in terms of volume or in terms of money is bigger, probably the actual number in terms of actual distributors or retailers may be a little smaller. I'm not sure if how that will split. So I mean, the number looks very big when you say $700 million or $8 billion, but if it's circulated between 2,000 retailers, whoever gets to first to them.
Exactly, and it's about getting those retailers at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me more about traction abhi kaisi hai aapki, and are you facing issues because you said that it's an informal, there's a lot of informal sector over there. Part of the reason of it, there are a couple of reasons for sector being informal. One is the lack of acceptance of technology and all that, and there wasn't available even, and also to avoid digitization, because eventually digitization can get you in trouble with tax authorities and whatnot. So how your traction is going and what kind of adoption challenges are you looking at?
Good question. Adoption challenges, I think supply side pe bhi the or demand side pe bhi the initially bahut zyada. They have significantly reduced right now. So I think right now we don't face a lot of resistance now, especially from the retailer base. So biggest thing was to collecting CNICs from retailers. So in Pakistan, to comply with tax laws, if you are selling above 50,000 rupees to each customer, you need to have the NIC. So we initially collected almost 15,000 to 18,000 NICs in a burst, and which took a lot of effort and investment. So nahi dete na itne aaram se, but I think once they understand the service and got addicted to it, they did it, right? And which was surprising for me as well, because बड़ा ही आप अजीब सा behavior देखेंगे कि सबको पता है कि tier 1 distributors को जरूर दें. So the Nestle, Unilever, P&G को कोई मना नहीं करता. But till the longest time they had this conception with our minds कि हम लोग नहीं लेंगे. But when we really started asking for it, they eventually understood कि यार इसके बगैर वो सामान नहीं देंगे. So they got over that hump. It is still a challenge in Islamabad. It's right now a challenge, which where we are scaling, and it is of course remains a challenge for a lot of customers. But I think it unnecessary fear hai, more than so. If you even calculate the real impact of tax to these customers, it's negligible. It's like 5,000 rupees a year, just to give you a sense. But problem ye hoti hai that they don't realize that majority of your income is at a level which is untaxable. So they get afraid of it being documented and so on, right? So that is where the fear stems in from. I think दूसरा बड़ा barrier रहा है, which is technology penetration. So smartphone and internet penetration still at an X level. So we've had to build a lot of ways of accepting orders from customers outside of the application itself as well, which is something which we didn't visualize in the start, and then gradually transitioning them to the application. So I think that's been the secondary adoption traction challenge. And then on the supply front, initially it was a lot of challenge with even talking to the big brands like the Levers of the world. But now it's a completely different ballgame. I think some degree, all brands are super open. They approach us as well sometimes that they want to partner and work. So I think that's completely changed in the last 1.5 years from that side of the market, particularly. So that's been, I think, around the traction. I think now we've been able to onboard in Pakistan more than 50,000 retailers now, out of which a portion is, of course, active with our platform on a monthly basis. But the main thing has been that the response on the customer side is incredible now. We get around 3,000 to 4,000 signups onto the platform every month, and out of which a lot of those signups are in cities where we don't operate, right? So where we have to hold back and tell them that inshallah soon we'll be there where they're selling.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So other than this onboarding challenges, are there any other challenges to the business that you're foreseeing? Uh, Team building, financing, what are your kind of other
The
challenges?
biggest challenging is now creating clarity. We are almost a 800 plus people team now. So, and that's happened in the last 1.5 years. The core team, which is not working on the front lines, is also around 250 people. So that is a lot of people who've joined in a very small condensed amount of time. So, and reorganizing them into new functions, new things to do, and keeping them all aligned with the same purpose and mission is becoming a harder and harder complex problem to solve. I think that's a fun challenge to solve as well. And at a personal level, what excites me really is now this. On a secondary level, on a market level, I think the biggest challenge now is how do we become the primary source of supplier to a lot of these retailers? So the retailers see us as a strong supplementary channel right now. And of course, a few loyal customers see you as a very supreme primary channel as well. But the wider audience at large doesn't. So I think that is one thing which we are grappling with and really working on solving.
Okay. So in next 2 to 3 years, your kind of mission is to become a primary supplier to most of these.
Of course, of course. If not, so primary is of course a very good. So our share of wallet should at least be 15% of these customers, right? Like at least 15% of what they're buying in the store should come from us. So I think that is now a core goal and which we're very focused on. Besides this, I think one thing which on the supply side of the business, of course, we've had the luxury to operate on a almost like close to negative unit economics or like bare break-even unit economics. So I think this is something to, of course, push towards more profitability. And I think that is completely possible because today the suppliers and the manufacturers themselves have started incorporating us into their planning, right? As that this is the important channel to going forward to work on. So the margins are becoming healthier and steadier as well. So I think from that point is evolution, but there's still a lot of convincing work to be left on when they really see us as a big part of their route to market strategy as well.
Sounds okay. Okay. And any because the startups have their blinkers on and they look in one direction. So for other for other teams who are looking to start to have a new startup, any quick advice for them that they shouldn't be making the same mistakes that you have done, as well as what are the peripherals or other areas that you can see which needs a lot of digitization and startup growth, where there are opportunities and you feel there is nobody there to actually grab that market?
Sorry, Umair, you couldn't really understand. Sorry, the question.
So I was saying that while you guys are really focused on your business, but also you are operating in a market, so you see other opportunities, and a lot of our audience is also people who want to create new startup. So what kind of opportunities you see, and what kind of path they should be taking, and not making the same mistakes that probably you have done earlier?
So I think, yeah, good question. So I think that on the opportunities, I think there are three big opportunities in Pakistan, right? It's like agri, health, and which is we call what retail, right? So I think out of these three is the place to be in my head. I think that
Agri, health, and third one
in Pakistan is
what
a
is the
bit
third?
retail.
Retail.
Yeah. I know education is a very hot kind of topic and transportation as well, but education and transportation are small verticals relatively in Pakistan. So it's very difficult to build a company of sizable scale if you want to go to VC route through these two verticals. And maybe it's possible to do that on a regional scale, but out of Pakistan is kind of hard. So I think these are the three sort of opportunities to focus on. There's so much to be done. I think the agri side, especially in the supply front, is not working at all right now. So there's no solution like us on the agri inputs. There's of course a lot on the output now, which we talked about already.
There's a startup that I also invested in. They're trying to solve this problem, but yeah, startups are coming in that space.
Yeah, of course, that's a big opportunity. I think then health is a massive opportunity in terms of both telemedicine, in terms of supplying these to the supply chains as well. And the third, I think vertical is to me is really creating services for small businesses. I think Pakistan is all about small businesses, and there's huge opportunity for creating different services for them. I think there's quality of service and accessibility of services through technology is very low. There's state bank regulations in place that you can't buy a lot of SaaS solutions from outside as well. So I think a lot of the larger sizable SaaS solutions, if they have competitive Pakistani competitors, will be huge opportunities in the near future. So I think those would be the two. I think in terms of mistakes, I think mistake one would be that do not think second guess yourself, right, and your decisions. I think there's nobody. So I think one misconception that exists around startups in general is that somehow investors are responsible for the journey of companies. I think that's the biggest fad that I've heard and been exposed to. I think as founders, you are responsible for everything, right? You are supposed to decide the vision, what the company will do, how much fund it needs, how much fund it doesn't need. So I think that is one thing to realize on, that the scope of your thinking is what the company will become. So put a very high bar on your own thinking. I think that is one thing. It's like you need to think about everything and then execute with priority on a few things. So I think that is one. And then second, in terms of the mistakes not to repeat for sure, is have a lot of formal discussions around informalized things in the company. So I think one thing which I've realized is that when we were 100 people, it was easy to operate informally, right? That this guy is doing that, Y guy is doing. Now when we are 800, it would have made sense if we had formalized it 6 months ago, 1 year ago, right? So I think a lot of the informal suffers from not being formalized at a larger scale, and then things drop, break. So I think that would be the second thing which I would say to focus on. These two, I guess.
Okay. So Wahaj, thank you very much for being with us. I think it was an entertaining discussion. Get to hear a lot of numbers as well as insights in the business. So thank you very much for being with us today on the show.